Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
The Buccaneers season comes to an end with a divisional round loss in Detroit to the Lions. It's a sad ending, but hey, you guys, it's far better than what most projected at the beginning of the season. We're going to grade the Bucs season and delicately dip into the upcoming offseason on this edition of Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Hello there to you folks, filling in for Eileen Natchik. I'm JB Biunno.
Welcome back, JB.
It's good to see you, buddy.
It's so great. Let's hit the applause.
This is
There you
great.
go. Man, how
Welcome
about that?
back.
Love it. And Eileen on assignment this week. Everybody, don't worry. All the mega Eileen fans out there, she's back next week, you guys. And yeah, different tone. Kind of a bit of a, here, where's my trombone sound effect? I have that. I come back to the show and the Bucs are no longer
Yes,
it.
I know.
Is it my fault? Did I do it? Did I jinx
No.
it? Well,
Can
look,
you imagine if we were previewing the NFC Championship today?
oh my goodness.
That would have been something.
I know.
But you know what, though? You're going to, if you look on our Facebook page, and we just said this on WFLA News Channel 8, there's a lot of positive love for the Buccaneers on our Facebook page. And you know what, though? A lot of love for the Lions. It's hard not to feel for that fan
They have a good
base.
story for sure.
They do. And guys, this could have gone in a variety of different ways for the Buccaneers. A couple of key plays swung things. Karen, why don't we start with you? What did you make of the Buccaneers' performance in Detroit this past weekend?
I think it's what you've seen all season long for them in regards to effort. You know, like you could tell they really wanted it. You could tell that they were all in for it. And you saw some of the big playmakers stepping up. I think it was just a tough way to end it, though.
Dan, your thoughts on the season ender?
I agree. Two conversations that I had at the game. One with Tony Dungy before the game. We were kind of recalling his own career and the fact that the Bucs played the Lions in the playoffs, which was the night that they say the franchise turned around after the 1997 season, and it was kind of in a way that the shoe is on the other foot. The Lions are really kind of America's team right now. I think they're a tremendous story. A couple of years into a head coach that was, you know, a gruff player, and he's really got those guys believing. They've drafted well. It's a really good football team. And then I heard a Lions fan, well after the game was over, saying that he couldn't believe the competitiveness of Baker Mayfield and the fact that he was blown away by Baker Mayfield just watching the game. I think he thought the Lions were going to have an easy day, but the fact that Baker kept coming back, and that's kind of Baker's season. He impressed the Lions fans, and the Bucs fell behind 4 times in that game. They tied it up 3 times. Each quarter, the first, second, and third quarters ended tied because the Bucs were able to provide an answer. But when they fell behind 2 scores, they just ran out of gas in the comeback.
It was an entertaining game, was it not? It was a good game.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, comes down to the fourth quarter. Playoff football, that's what you want. Can we just agree for a second? And we're going to talk a lot of Bucs football. Can we agree that we're rooting for the Lions, right? I mean, it's hard not to root for that team.
It would be a fascinating story to see them get to the Super Bowl. One of the few franchises that has never won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And it's been around. 1957 is the last time they won a championship of any sort. So in that great sports city that went through the recent Red Wings era, the Tigers got a World Series there with Jim Leland. The Lions the whole time were just kind of spurting along. And I've been in that stadium a few times, and it's been just half full, quiet. One year, the Jameis and the Bucs went in there, just ran all over the Lions. And the other day, it was like a home field. It was awesome. You couldn't hear yourself. When the Lions were on offense, it would go silent. It was great. I thought it was great. So I'm happy for the Lions fans.
I am too. And look, everyone's going to want to root for the Bucs to go as far as possible. But if there was a heartbreaker for the Buffalo Bills fans in Buffalo over the weekend. So we're going to talk about the Bucs season overall, but let's just focus on the game for one quick moment. Key moments to you, Karen, things that could have swung the pendulum one way or the other and maybe changed the outcome of the game. Is there something that's kind of living rent-free in your brain after digesting it?
Yes, the final drive. Because it's like when the Bucs get the ball back, 90 yards to go in a minute and 59 seconds. You're like, okay, it's like we've seen this offense rise to the occasion, whoever that might be on the roster, all the way down the depth chart.
Right.
You're like, okay, this could be it. And then it's like the second play.
And the interception.
And
goes to the other team. And it's just a really unfortunate thing because to Dan's point about talking about Baker's grit and his fight, like he's just given the blood, sweat, and tears, as other players have, but we've spoken so much this season about Baker's fight and just his grit. And for that to be the end of it, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Or a to be continued, but we'll talk more about the Bucs.
Well, the end of it for the game.
Right, for the game.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the off-season sort of agenda is for the Buccaneers. But before I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Dan, there has been quite a controversy brewing, as most controversies do, on social media.
Hindsight is always the best, isn't it, JB?
In regards
We're all
to
coaches. We're all coaches.
The final couple of minutes where the Buccaneers had a timeout remaining and let the clock expire when, in theory, they could have maybe called a timeout, forced a field. Todd Bowles had said the game had been over, as I understand it. What do you make of this controversy?
The game was over. First of all, this is a touchy subject with Bucs fans because there's some really hard opinions out there on Todd Bowles regarding this moment. And I understand. If you have a chance to win all the way until the clock says 0, you do everything you can to try to win. Absolutely. I understand that point. So in that sense, maybe you use the timeout. There's two sides to that. The other coach messed up, or the other quarterback, Jared Goff, messed up because they had all the time to take a knee, and they did it too soon. In fact, on 2 plays, they left too much time on the play clock, and you could have ended the game. There's really a science behind it. It's just math. But the Lions opened the door for the Bucs to call the timeout and get the ball back. Had the Bucs used their timeout on any of those downs, second down, third down, the Lions would have attempted a field goal. Would it have gone in? We'll never know. If it missed, they maybe had a chance to have 30 seconds or so on the clock. They would have to go 70 yards, score a touchdown, and then convert a 2-point conversion. We'll never know. We'll never know. But the fact is, by the math of the time clock, I think that's what Todd Bowles was referring to. There was no gentleman's agreement. That's how Todd Bowles is as a gentleman, if you want to say, in the game, a sportsmanship. But yes, there was a chance to use the timeout for sure and giving Baker one more crack at it. The one example you can cite to where the Bucs were able to do something with that situation was the Buffalo game on the Thursday night. They were able to get 2 shots at the end of the game, one of them being a throw to the end zone that everybody remembers Chris Godwin not turning around. He might have caught it. But it's very unfortunate that it came to that. What I thought was peculiar was the previous touchdown, the Mike Evans touchdown. They went for 2.
I was going to ask about that next.
After
that was another one.
I thought that was weird because I know what you're trying to set up, but I happen to believe in you don't go for 2 until you have to go for 2. If you kick the extra point, it's a 7-point game. So now let's go to that end of the game scenario. Call timeout. You get the ball back. By some miracle, you score a touchdown. Now you're kicking an extra point to tie and go to overtime instead of having to now turn around and convert a 2-point conversion. We can sit here and say coulda, woulda, all we want. And fans are a little upset about it, so I'm not going to bash anyone who says that they should have absolutely used the timeout. I think the Lions brought this situation upon themselves by not counting the math of when they had to take the kneel downs. And so there. If the Bucs had used the timeout, I think the Lions kick a field goal, and it's a moot point. I think the field goal goes in. Their kicker's that good. So it was an under 50-yard attempt. So that's my woulda, coulda on that.
The Buccaneers staring at, of course, the offseason now, and we will talk more about the offseason, but we can't, of course, move on to the offseason without hearing from two of the mainstays on this program. Casey, of course, is going to highlight a player that really stood out to her, but Buckified Bert is going to want to talk about the end of the Buccaneers season.
Hello, JB. Welcome back. So happy to have an opportunity to talk to everybody about the Buccaneers this season, because a lot of negative was being talked about, thinking that we weren't going to win no more than 2 or 3 games. Well, I didn't believe that from the time we got Baker Mayfield. I think our future is very promising. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but I'm very happy that we proved 99.9% of the people wrong, because the Buccaneers was like 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. So I'm signing off now. So until 2024 season, Buckified Bert, I want to give you one last pitch to Casey Sloan. She's going to give you the stat of the week. And this is Buckified Bert signing off for the end of this season. Thank you for a wonderful season, Buccaneers. This is Buckified Bert, and I'm out.
Well, guys, it just breaks my heart to say this, but this is the last KC Stat Chat segment of the season, as the Bucs were unable to pull out a win against the Lions Sunday. But it's okay, because they made it further than what anyone thought they would, and that's what matters to me, is that they proved everyone wrong. So, for this week's KC Stat Chat Player of the Week, it's someone who is going to be very hot on the market for free agency, so let's get into it. Evans finished with a team-high 8 receptions for 147 yards and 1 touchdown against the Lions. His receiving yards marked not only a new single-game postseason career high, but also established a new single-game playoff franchise record. With his performance Sunday, Evans became the club's all-time postseason scrimmage yard leader. Mike Evans was stellar all season long, all year long, as he always is, so hopefully him and the Bucs are able to work out the deal to make him a Buck for life, and we'll see him again next season. That's all I have for you guys.
Man, Mike Evans entering. Thank you to Casey and, of course,
Yes,
Buckified
always,
Bert.
all season. We appreciate you.
Hard
both.
work, guys.
Well, remember the Evans narrative at the beginning of the season, and what a year, of course, that he had and performed, of course, in Detroit. But guys, I want to ask you. Let's get right into this now, because I want you to rewind and remember where we were when we were kicking off this show for the 2023-2024 NFL season. And I remember Casey had a story up on our website. I think the Buccaneers were projected to win 1 or 2 games, according to FanDuel or DraftKings or something like that. Some betting website. The Buccaneers were not expected to win their division. When you put it all together and you assign a letter grade to it, you give a letter. I want you to, Professor Loftus and Professor Lucas in the house, give us a letter grade for the Bucs season. Who would like to go first?
Oh, I think we should do it at the same time. That's my favorite.
Oh,
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
let's
like
do
that.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
A minus.
Okay, an
Solid
A,
A.
and an A minus. How about that? You guys are right there on
Solid
the letter
A.
grade.
Yeah.
Please do explain why you give an A minus, Karen.
So the A part, so like your top grade, I give that because of exceeding expectations. There was so much uncertainty. You have a new offensive coordinator, you have a new quarterback, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of young players who are contributing. So from the perspective of like exceeding outside expectations and what they were able to do to not only make the playoffs for the 4th straight year, win the division for the 3rd time in 4 years, but to make it to the divisional round. I gave it a minus because of the way it was trending. I felt like this team could have made it further. So that's why I gave it a low A.
I like that.
Now, you were a little more optimistic with a solid A, Dan. Why?
I based my A on the fact that the full body of work demonstrates that it far exceeded expectations and forecasts on this team. This was the storylines in August where Mike Evans is disgruntled, Devin White's disgruntled, Baker Mayfield's here just to go as long as he can until they hand it to Kyle Trask. Todd Bowles is going to get fired. That was the picture that we were handed. And where are we in January? We are on the other side of that. We're talking about the disappointment of not getting to the NFC Championship game. If that first scenario really took this team downhill, it would have been over by Halloween. we'd be in the middle of a coach search. Baker's gone. Evans is probably gone. All the other guys are getting lined up and looking around for other deals. Antoine Winfield, does he have the season he has? If people are getting hurt and just trying to fill in and go through the motions, that's what bad teams do. This team went the other way. Thought it was wonderful. I also thought that implementing a new offense with a new offensive coordinator who was calling plays for the first time ever, I gave him a lot of leeway early on, and he proved something to me. That he can do this. And, the example I'll give you is Rachaad White, who just couldn't find a gear. They could not get it going, the run game at all, particularly Rachaad White, who has shown in his first year what he can do, especially after he gets through the first level or catches the ball. And then they found a way to get him going. And the season turned around. The season turned when they got Rachaad White going. And it was through the pass game, not the run game. Everything else opened up after that. This team woke up. It was fun to watch. That's why I give it an A.
Man, look at this. When you look at the schedule, right? I mean, it paints a picture. You're talking about 4 consecutive October, not a kind month for the Buccaneers. And then all of a sudden, as Dan was referencing, December, turning it on, winning 5 of the last 6 games, and then going on to beat the Eagles in the wild card round. I mean, hard to argue with either of your grades.
And I feel like not to be overlooked in pointing out how they finished the season is that those were must-win games.
Yes.
Those were not like, okay, let's win a couple and then see where we stand. Like, no, like they had to beat the Panthers and the Falcons, and those were must-win games. So the fact that they were able to do that with their backs against the wall was very impressive.
And I look at that schedule, and I see a high point and I see a very low point for me. The high point was the win in Green Bay.
Big time.
That was the one that made everybody go, how far? This team's going to get into the playoffs. How far can they go?
Yeah.
The low point for me was the Texans loss, where they didn't play well.
They gave up 39 points.
They didn't play well and still found a way to drive at the end of the game and take the lead. Baker Mayfield essentially won that game, and then it was just close it out. And they couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And remember, that was, what is that? 1, 2, 3. It was 4 in a row. And I thought, this coach is gone. This is going to be a disaster. I was very pessimistic after that Texans game.
And then all of a sudden, a win at home against the Titans.
Yeah.
All right, a couple of losses away, but then turning it on in December and overall finishing again. A 9-8 record in a division that, in large part, can be probably the worst division in the NFL. But someone had to win it.
But here's the
Buccaneers win it.
The 49ers game that they went out west and played, and this I hadn't heard much of this talk until recently. They were really they felt good about their game that day, and they thought that they were good enough for a rematch with the 49ers, which had they beaten Detroit would have been a 3rd straight rematch with a game they had lost. Right. During the regular season. They thought that they matched up well and played pretty well overall. I don't think the game got away out late a little bit from them, but not like the previous year where they went out there with Tom Brady and just got embarrassed. They were looking forward to a chance to play the 49ers again, and that would have been interesting to see because their 49ers injury report's not looking good right now.
While we have this up and while we have some of these teams up on, like the Lions and the Niners on our screen here, do you guys have a Super Bowl prediction real quick? Pick a pick for the Super Bowl?
Not yet.
I'm having a hard time seeing how the Lions get past the 49ers on the road, but the Niners we were showed last week that the Niners, are a beatable team, and they're missing arguably their best player, and he may not play this week, Deebo Samuel. So, and the Lions, gritty, have gotten it done every way possible. It's kind of hard to bet against the Lions right now, and I just think everybody's playing to play against the Ravens. That's my thing. I think the Ravens are the #1 team in the league, and they're here. Everybody else is kind of here.
It'll be a great weekend of football, of course, on Sunday with the 2 conference championships before the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Guys, you want to laugh for a second? Check out Casey's season preview. You guys, or excuse me, next week preview. Hold on. I got this up here, right here. We said, what are we going to do with this graphic? And Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the beach golf course with some of the key storylines. Now, we're going to, of course, do a lot of content and a lot of episodes, whether you're here on YouTube, WFLA.com, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're going to have, of course, conversations about the Buccaneers offseason going forward. But I want to point you in a little bit of a direction to get you started. And Casey has an article up on WFLA.com, which Tampa Bay Buccaneers are scheduled to become free agents. It is a list of some very recognizable names, some of which we have mentioned already on this show. So it is a pivotal offseason for Jason Light, Todd Bowles, the entire Buccaneers franchise. Guys, I want to bring you, you're our Bucs insiders. What are you hearing? What's the chatter? What's the word on the street, or even the word beyond the street? What do you guys give us an idea as to what are going to be the key themes with the offseason still ahead?
Well, the word on the street, or the word on the insiders of football, is the Bucs are in a much better place than they were a year ago, just because they are one of the top 10 teams now in terms of salary cap room, and they're going to have a nice chunk available. The problem is that chunk is accounted for quickly by three names if they choose to really pursue and keep all three: Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and Antoine Winfield. Devin White is a fourth if you want to add him on that list, but his value is over $20 million. So there's questions, obviously, does he have a place on this team next year? And there's other players making high money that might have to go in order to fit an Evans contract in there. And then, of course, Jason Light will do his magic with backloading the deals and loading it with bonuses to try and impact those numbers. The thing you have to watch out for is if we get word that other teams are pursuing Baker or are interested in pursuing Baker in that little tampering period that comes up, because before that, the Bucs can assign their franchise tag. And if they want to take that out of the equation, they can do that, but they're going to pay Baker a lot more money than I think they would otherwise. I think it's $27 million is his market value coming into the offseason. The franchise tag is almost $35 million, where his position ranks. So you can lock him in, but now you've got another $35 million payroll.
And he made $8 million this season, if I'm not...
Four was his salary cap hit. The other money he made was bonuses and incentives.
So he's in line to basically triple his salary.
Yeah, he's the ultimate bet on yourself
1 year prove it deal
that
type
I've
of
seen
thing.
in a long time. This was going to go one way or the other for Baker. And that's part of the reason why I like this team so much. Everybody came here humble pie, ready to work, and Baker knew if he messed this up, there's really not many more places for him to go.
Well, also, Dave Canales, what does that look like next season if he's getting head coaching interviews?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's another facet.
Yeah. Had an in-person interview today with the Carolina Panthers, which is his second interview. And there's other coaches lined up to come in for the same thing. Well, by the way, one's being our old buddy, Raheem Morris, former Bucs head coach.
Yeah, I did see that.
Who is, dear assistant coach. We loved him back in the years. He's a friend to us here at News Channel 8. Got the job. He was a little bit, in the end, he was a little bit young to take on that responsibility, and he has paid his dues. It's been over a decade since he was let go, and I think he's ready for another shot at a job.
But I think similar to, and we've talked about this in years past, about the coming together and what the next year's roster is going to look like. It's like a lot of these are interconnected. Like Baker said after the game, like if he comes back, he wants Mike Evans back.
Yeah.
Like that's like, if you got me, we need him.
I think that those two guys are about as secure as it gets to coming back here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy who loses Mike Evans. Not me. Not on my watch.
Yeah.
Not when he's your next. Man, we're talking 10 years from now. There's going to be another generation of Bucs Hall of Famers. He leads the way, and I just don't want to see it. I know it's hard to do in the modern day NFL, but I just don't want to see that in a different uniform. I want the Levante David finish.
I was literally just about to say
Yes.
Levante David. So I'm doing
I
a
want
story
that.
on him today about, he just finished his 12th year in the league. Like, what's he
Right.
going to do? What's that look like? So that's another. We were having the same discussion last season about him, and obviously he came back and had one of the best years of his career. He led the team. He missed 2 games and still led the team with 134 tackles.
I had joked
in Detroit too.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it.
I joked even win or lose before the game the other day. I said if I'm Jason Light, I'm meeting him in the hallway as soon as he comes off the field. Here, sign this.
Sign this.
Sign this.
Hey there.
Yeah. What
Got
is
something
this?
for you.
Just sign it. Just sign it.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
Evans. Well, I love. I mean, going to go down as one of the greatest Bucs ever. Right?
Yes.
I mean, no doubt.
Didn't I say he might be the?
Right. I remember you saying that, being like, it's hard to argue against it, right?
With Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and Leroy Selman and how could you dare you? I just he has the chance to put. Not only he's going to have a place in NFL history when it's done. His touchdown catches, he's going to wind up right behind Jerry Rice. He has a chance to put the franchise records out of reach, and that's unbelievable. That's awesome.
Karen, I also love. I want to just circle back for 1 second your point about Dave Canales, because so many teams in this league prioritize the resurgence of the quarterback position. Right? He did it in Seattle with Geno Smith out of nowhere. Does it with Baker now. So there are going to be some teams who are going to be salivating perhaps the opportunity to say, hey, we need to get the very most out of our quarterback, and here's a guy who has now done it in 2 places. Oh, by the way, he's now calling plays as well in Tampa Bay. So I love that point too.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be.
I like his for me, it's his infectious positivity.
Is he that positive?
He's
of a guy?
so
Yeah.
great.
I love him on Twitter, by the way. Shout out to him on Twitter.
So positive.
He is.
His energy.
Yeah, you don't shun that when he says that. He does. He walks in the room. You do sit up straighter. The question is, I just don't know if he's ready for that role. You know, you're taking over if Carolina wants him, he's inheriting a mess. I mean, you come here to the Tampa Bay, you had a massive question at the quarterback position and you had to revamp the offense, but man, did you have some tools to work with.
Yeah, and that's what he said. Well, one of the reasons he took the job, he's like, I was walking into a situation where I was like,
this was not offense.
We got some players.
This was not offense 101.
No.
He was trying to get the ball to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the hardest thing that they had to do during the training camp was get Tristan Wirfs, custom or acclimated at left tackle.
Look at how that went, by the way.
Yes.
My boy.
He's phenomenal.
You take Luke Gedeke, who, you know who you are, Bucs fans. You're probably mad at me about the timeout thing still. That a lot of Bucs fans wanted Gedeke run out of here after his rookie season. He was a bum. He didn't do well at right guard. Well, he will tell you, he's the first to tell you, yeah, you're right, I didn't play well. He's a right tackle. That's what he played in college. That was his specialty in college. And then they moved him to right tackle, and what did he do? He had a tremendous season. So they pushed a lot of right buttons on this team. The team's ready to make another run, I think.
I'm going to put Karen on the spot here with one other name that came up in this conversation I want to circle back to before we end out this show. Has Antoine Winfield Jr. priced himself out of the Buccaneers equation going forward?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
I mean,
I don't like that because
plays.
He has. I think he's proved his worth. And now the onus is on.
18 million is his value coming out. I'm going from memory. 1.8 was his salary this year. He's marketed at 18. Whew. Jamel Dean just got the big deal last year, right?
I forget how much.
We thought Jamel Dean was as good as gone last offseason, and he was, to me, the most surprising acquisition, if you want to call him an acquisition, at that money, and everybody was so happy for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Antoine's the next guy. Who's the defensive MVP on this team? That's what I ask. I can't get away from Antoine.
Yeah, he was everywhere.
I can't get away from him.
His resume just keeps building and building and building.
Plays.
His energy too. And it's like the 2 hustle plays stand out.
Yes. A lot of guys. Vita Vea is probably the MVP of the defense year in, year out. Levante. And then Kalijah Kancey coming on. But if Kalijah Kancey has a full camp and a preseason doesn't hurt his calf, then he is probably astronomical numbers.
And even Yaya too. I mean,
coming
as a rookie to come in and
Yes.
lead the team in quarterback sacks.
Yes. The pieces.
I feel like we need different layers. You're MVP of this.
Yeah.
You're MVP of this. You're
Right,
rookie
exactly.
MVP. You're,
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That might be a piece that we leave for next episode when Eileen is back. And, of course, back here co-hosting with our two Bucs insiders, Dan Lucas and Karen Loftus. Of course, the offseason is going to be filled with many large question marks, but your home for all of it is WFLA.com and WFLA News Channel 8, your official Bucs station, home of the insider contributions of Dan Lucas and Karen Loftus. Congratulations on a remarkable season from the two of you. You guys worked your tails off, and it's a pleasure working here with both of you. Everyone, be on the lookout for more editions of Bucs Bonus, of course, as we talk about some exciting off-season topics, such as the NFL draft and where the Bucs might. Of course, we're talking about free agency. We're talking about the NFL draft. There's a lot of fun things to talk about in the offseason, and Dan and Karen will be all over it, along with Eileen. That's going to do it for this edition of Bucs Bonus. Thanks so much for joining us. Shout out to Casey and Buckified Bert, and we will see you next time from your official Bucs station.